Let's look at few other things that are important while understanding backgrounds or might help you in creating backgrounds easily. So let's understand the sixth and the seventh point together. So two things. First of all, whenever you are making images, especially when you are making images of a individual character, that is, maybe there are three characters in the scene, but you are showing a close-up view of one character. So always try to experiment with the camera angles. The reason why it's better to have different camera angles is because you can have different backgrounds. Like just imagine that you're showing a person sitting in the office, right? Now, if you have to show that person, like if you are making close-up shot of that one person, right? If you always make front view shot of that character. Now, I'm not saying it's wrong to give the front view shot of the character always. Like you can have different kinds of images, but just think about it. If you are making, let's say, if you are always making the front view shot of that particular character, right? Now, whatever background or details of the background are there for one image, you have to maintain that detail in all the images. So, for example, you're making a very simple background, but there are still things in the background. Like, let's say in one image, you showed that, behind that person, there is a table, let's assume, or a bookshelf, something is there in the office, or maybe on the table, there is a laptop, or maybe behind the table there is a flower, something is there, right? A photo frame is there, a wall clock is there is something behind the wall. So now if you always make that image or that character in front of you shot, you'll have to remember that you'll have to show those details consistently. Like if there is a watch on the wall, let's say, every time you make close up shot of that person, you'll have to maintain that watch. So it's always better to have different camera angles, because when you have different camera angles, you can have different backgrounds. You just have to maintain the colors and keep the background similar. Because if it's a 3D room, right? So I can assume that there are different views of that particular room in different angles. Maybe it's a white office, let's assume. So maybe one side, if I show a side angle shot, right? So let's say something like this. Imagine that this is what we are making right now. So now if I show something like this as one of my background, so I'm giving a very simple shot. I'm giving that, okay, it's a white wall, white room, white furniture. There is one window here, right? Maybe if I change the camera angle, I can assume this as one of the other side, because here I show that there is one window on this wall. So maybe if I show this, like let's imagine that I put the character standing here, I can assume that there's a different wall and this was that same wall. And here there is a, dressing table and stuff here, and this is the same bed, right? I can have a different angle of the same room. I can maybe put this, let's say, though that, okay, because the color is same and the style is similar, like it's very minimal. There was nothing special in that room. So now we can assume that these are different angles of the room, but this is only possible when I show different angle of that person. Like maybe once I'll show side view of that character, or maybe once I'll show back pose of the character, top view, low camera angle view, front view. Like there can be different shots of the same character so that I can play around with the backgrounds. And if I keep my background color similar and style same, by style we mean whatever details we are putting in the background. Like let's say if I'm making the office background, let's assume, and I show that the office is like a glass kind of office or glass wall kind of office, right? Or the office is like gray in color. The furnitures are let's say wooden furnitures, the floor is wooden. So all these details, if I keep same and if I keep the color similar, I can play around with the background. But if I always give front view shot, if I'm always creating like full body shot or close-up shot of the face, and if this is my background, I have to make sure that the background looks same. Because let's just imagine that you're making one image where the character is sitting. Let's say that. So let's take this. So now imagine that this is my office background. I made one image where I showed the character sitting on this chair, let's say, right? And I gave a wide angle shot of this view where I showed that behind this chair there is a flower here, like I can see that wave, and there is a photo frame here, and there is a window here. So all these is being captured here, right? Now, if I show a close up shot of the person, like let's imagine that the only face is visible, but now behind the face, few part of the background is also visible, and there I change the background to something like this. Let's say, right now you can say that the color looks okay, the design looks same, but the background changed, right? It will not work that way because if the camera angle has not changed, I cannot change the background. So it's always a benefit to make different angles so that you can play around with your backgrounds. You can keep the color similar, and even though your backgrounds change does not matter because it's a 3D room, so we can have different views. Assuming that this is a different wall, we can have that context. But this only works when you have different camera angles. Okay. To explain this, I have few images of one show, a old show, but this will give you an understanding. So let's just say that this was supposed to be a um like a school classroom scene. So now if I show three characters sitting like this, right? I can give a different angle to the characters. Now they're sitting like this. I can just keep the color similar. And because I'm changing the camera angles, I don't have to worry too much about the details at the back or stuff. I can just keep the color of their bench same and color of the wall similar, and then rest of the things are fine. Similarly, if I give like different shots of the same person, like let's say here, I can just play around with the color of the background. I can assume that there was a window here. I can assume that behind him there's nothing there. Right? Same thing here. Let's say if I have to show him sit like this, right? If there are two characters sitting like this, I can just assume that, like let's say if this is the color, I can maintain the color of the benches, I can maintain the color of the wall, and then I can change the view so that I don't have to worry too much about the details. I can, even though if I don't have all these details, I can still keep the color of the wall similar and still it will work. Right? Same thing, let's say. So there's a good example to explain these 2 points together, that why changing of camera angles are important and how changing of camera angles help us in getting different kinds of background. Still it works, but if in some case the camera angle does not change, they have to make sure the backgrounds are not changing. So this is a um like let's say a office scene. This is supposed to be a kind of an office, right? So now if this is how the office is looking, if this is how the wall color is, or this is how the texture of the floor is, this is how the color of their chairs are. Now I have to just think about these colors, and I can change stuff if I'm changing the camera angles. So now let's say if he's sitting here and there is a photo frame at the back. Now if I am making a close-up shot of this person, right? So there was a photo frame and this design at the back. So if I am making a close-up shot, I cannot change the like background. It has to be the same background. I cannot have a different background here because it's the same camera angle. Right. Second thing, let's say now just assume these two images, like look at these two images. So if I'm making him in front view pose, right? I can think about that there is this wall at the back, but same thing now he's in side view shot. So even though the background changed, I can still assume it's the same room because it's a side view shot. Maybe this wall, the wall that was here, maybe that wall is something like this. But if again I'm making something in the same, like let's say camera angle again side view, like he changed pose, change expression, change, a lot of things change. But if I'm making something like this, I cannot change the background. It has to be same. Now I only get, like, now let's say same image, same person, same place, but the camera angle changes slightly. So now I can just see, if I just keep the design similar and the color same, I can assume that this is one of the walls there, and it still works. Same thing here, right? So you can have, so you have a benefit of, making the backgrounds, like, even if you get a background different, if you keep the color same, you can still work with that. But the only point there is, if you have different camera angles, it'll work nicely. But if you always keep front view faces, if you're always making one single, like let's say front view or side angle, you have to understand that if there is a side angle and you're again making a side angle shot, then the background cannot change. If you have this as your background for front view shot, again, if you're making a front view shot, your background cannot change. Now, imagine that this is, the person sitting here. So now I can have different backgrounds for him only if I have different camera angles. If I use different camera angles, because if I always make same camera angles, I'll have to always have the same background there. Only if, like, let's say, just look at these images all together. So only if I have different camera angles playing together, I can have different backgrounds. If I keep similar backgrounds, same color backgrounds, it'll still work. But if I always make her like in front view, like if I'm always giving her in front view shot, I'll have to make sure that this background cannot change. If I'm again making a front view shot, it has to be the same background. Now, same thing. Few more examples. I have few more examples here. So assume that there's a kitchen scene, right? So I have to just worry about how exactly the kitchen is looking like, you know, the details of the kitchen, the color of the kitchen, and the placement of the characters. And I can play around with the camera angles. Now, because the camera angles are changing here, like in these four images, I have different camera angles in all the four images, right? So I can just make the color of the kitchen same, and even though things change, I don't have to worry because this wall is not visible in any other image, or maybe this wall is not visible in any other image. So I can assume that this wall is similar to this wall. Right. So this is a benefit of changing camera angles or having different camera angles because you can always play around with your background. So you can just keep the background similar, it will work. And especially for images where you're making single characters or close-up shots, always play around with the camera angles, because even though you can't do that here, let's assume at least whenever you're making single character images or close-up shots, try to play around with camera angles so that you have a benefit of getting different backgrounds and still you can make it work. Is this, like, am I making sense here? Yeah, got it. Yes. So these were two of the points. Let's see what is next. So we have, okay. So yeah, okay, okay. So the sixth and the seventh point means that, you know, different camera angles, you can have different backgrounds. And if you like for some images, you have to make sure that the camera angles are same or you can't change the camera angles, then worry a little bit about your backgrounds. Now, let's say that sometimes what happens is, I have an example here. Let me just search like that. You have placed it here. Here. So let's say that there is one image like this. So just let's assume that I'm making one image where I showed the background as this wall and this, let's say, door. Right now there are two characters standing here who are standing. How do I say? In front of each other and talking to each other. Right now this is the background I have. So sometimes we do use generated backgrounds because maybe I have to show the same background. I have the preset background with me. Right now, if I have to show close-up shot of these two characters, and let's say I already have made my like images here. Right, I already have images right here. So now, let's say what sometimes people do is, let's say that I have to place a background here, right? Now this is the same person just inside view shot. Now what people do is they already have a background here. What they do is they'll place the background here. Let me just make a copy. So sometimes I've seen sometimes what people do is they don't understand that. Let's say what people do is they'll make one background. Let's say this is a background that I have generated. Now they'll use the same background for every character that they are making, like the close-up shot of every character. So what they do is, if this is the background that I have created, they'll use the same background and every single character image that I have to make. Like there are two characters, three characters, they'll use the same background for both of them. Like let's say something like this. Now, it's not wrong. Like, definitely the backgrounds are consistent, the colors are consistent, everything is consistent, perfectly fine. Right? But you have to understand when these two people are standing in front of each other, there's a distance between the two of them. Right? So now, let's just say that the camera is somewhere here. Right? And the camera is focusing on the two characters like this. So now, if I am like, the camera is somewhere here, someone wants to say something. Yes, so let's just say that the camera is somewhere here, right? Now, if I'm focusing only on this character, and then the next panel, I'm focusing my camera only on this character. I have to think about my background. My background cannot be same for both the characters as they are standing apart from each other. So if one character has background like this, like let's say maybe one of them, let me just take this out. So let's say one of them are because they both have like distance between them. So if one of them has background something like where I can see the door, maybe the other one can have like slightly door visible, and then rest of that should be wall. It cannot be same background for both of them as they both are standing apart from each other. Yeah. So let's say that if this is one of the background for this character, I cannot have same background for the other character. I'll have to move it a little bit. So whenever you're making something like this, so if you are making few people standing, right? It's not only about two characters. You can have three characters, four characters, but always remember that if you are using same backgrounds for different characters, close up shot. Always think about you can never use same background for close up of three characters or four characters. We'll always have to think about the placement and then adjust the backgrounds according to that. So if there was a third person standing here, I'll not even show this slightly door here. I'll only show this part because if I zoom or pan my camera to that person, like closer to of that person, this door will not be visible, because if my camera is here, only this wall will be visible. Or if there wasn't one person standing here, let's say behind him, and I have to make that close up shot of that person, I will not show this even slightly like this wall. So this is one thing that you have to understand whenever you are using especially when you are using some background as your reference background and using same backgrounds. If you are generating backgrounds by writing prompts, definitely you can have different backgrounds by, if you generate something. But sometimes when we use specific backgrounds, then understand this thing, what background you're using, and you can't use same background like placements for every character. You'll have to move that background little here and there to make that understanding for the viewers that this is a close-up shot of the same person, because their placements are not changing. We are just panning the camera to their face and making the close up, so the backgrounds cannot, like let's say we cannot have same backgrounds, the backgrounds will move a little bit. Yeah. Okay, now when we talk about props in the backgrounds, like let's say we can make the background simple, we can have very simple backgrounds, we can have same colors in the backgrounds. But sometimes we have to use few props in the backgrounds, right? We have to maybe have, like, let's say I'm talking like very simple things, like let's say we have to get a bed in a bedroom background, right? We might have to have a chair in the office background. So in all those scenarios where we have to have some props in the backgrounds, always try to use or keep very basic kind of props. Like let's say for example, if I have to make a bed, if I have to make a bed, so instead of, first of all, you should always check what kind of beds you are getting. So imagine that this is how my room looks. Let's just assume for now, this is how my room looks. So I might get different shapes of bed. If you see this bed, right? It has a very weird shape in the sense like it's not bad, but I know that I'm never going to use a bed like this because this will be very hard for me to make and to keep this consistent if I have to keep it consistent in a different image, right? Likewise, I will not use a bed like this because every time. So first of all, I have to understand if I'm getting something consistent or not, because sometimes by some prompts you might see that, like let's say maybe not for bed as an example, but let's say for chair as an example, for table as an example, sometimes even complicated chair or table might come consistent. Let's say you're always writing that I need a wooden, circular, this and that kind of a table, and you're always getting that consistent table. So in that case, if you feel like you have generated like let's say 4 or 8 images and you're always getting consistent table and chair, right? Or whatever props you need. Like let's say it can also be like a bowl, it can also be a cup, it can also be a photo frame, it can also be a wall clock, it can be anything that you need in a background. So if you're always getting something consistent by writing prompt and you feel like even though it's hard, even though it's a complicated thing, but still it's coming consistent by writing this particular prompt, then definitely go ahead and use it. But if you feel like that maybe if I choose, let's say, a bed like this, right, and it's not consistent. In one image, I'm getting something like this. In one image, I'm getting something like this. In one image, I'm getting something like this, right? So now maybe I'll not get. If I choose a bed like this, maybe every time I'll not get a bed like this. So in those cases, try to avoid these kind of bed. Instead, go for a bed like this, like a simple straight bed, because this is easy to make. I will, if I have to use this, I will also remove this part from the bed. I'll not even keep this because even this will be hard for me to keep it consistent if I have to make a bed like this. So I'll just simply see. I'll simply keep a bed like this, just a straight up bed like this, or I also remove this part. I don't even need that. So the simpler background you keep, the better. And especially for props, if you have to, make something like, let's say, chair, a table, first try to understand if you're getting that by prompt, what kind of chair, table, bed, cup, whatever you need, right? What kind of things you are getting by writing a prompt, if it is coming consistent or not. And then sometimes you'll not get it very consistent. Like, for example, let's say you have to get a chair and it's not very consistent. Like, you have kept a very minimal chair, like a very basic minimal chair, but every time even that basic minimal chair is not coming consistent. So then you have one option left. You can use the brush here, make that chair like the chair that you have kept, paint it with the same, like, let's say, for example, you want the chair to be black in color, like, let's say this example, and you got a different color chair or a different style chair. So just change that using the paintbrush, make it black, then write like a black leather chair in office or whatever prompt you have used for this. Right. So very first thing, try to keep things basic and simple. If you're not sure, try to generate and see if you're getting something like that. And then when you keep something basic, also okay, yeah. Also sometimes what will happen is, imagine that you're making a cup. Like, imagine that you're making a scene where people are sitting at a dining table or something, having tea or something, right? And now you have to show some cups or plates here and there. And now you've written that I need a white cup and something, but in few images, you're also getting a designer cup. Or maybe like there are designs printed on the cup, right? So you might assume that, okay, maybe I've generated 5 images, and in all the 5 images, I'm getting a design on the cup, and the design is coming consistent, let's say. Right? So you just thought that maybe I'll keep the cup with the design. Yes, definitely you can keep if you feel like it's coming consistent. But also worry about, what if I have to make this cup? Because imagine the first 5 images, you got it consistent, but maybe that cup scene is for the entire episode. And now after that 10, 15 images, you're not getting that cup. Or maybe, you are using some other reference images, Dali images or something else, and then you're not getting that reference or the same cup. So now will it be hard for me to get that designer cup there in all the images? So in those cases, even if, sometimes you are getting something designer and you feel like it's coming consistent, also think about, the later part, that what if in one image I have to make a cup. Like, maybe I'll use a reference image from Google or something, right? Or maybe I'll use DALI image, or maybe I'll use a 3D image, like whatever. Right? Now you have to get that design of that cup similar in all the images. So now will I be able to get that? If no, if you feel like that's a very complicated design, rather than choosing the designer cup or wasting your time to make the same design on this cup, you can just remove that design from those 5 images. So you can have complicated props in your background, but if you feel like it's not coming consistent, have a simple one. Like, backgrounds and dresses go along together. In both the cases, if you are getting something consistent by writing prompts, well and good. If you feel like something is not coming consistent, it's always better to remove it. Only if there is no context of that thing in the story, you can always remove that. So for example, if you are always getting a watch, or like, let's say, a wall clock on your wall, which you don't want, there is no context of that wall clock in your story, and you're always getting one, but it's inconsistent. So rather than trying to keep that wall clock consistent, I'll remove it. Same thing goes with the dress. If I'm getting a belt on the dress, but there is no context of that person wearing a belt, and that belt is like, sometimes the belt is coming, sometimes it's not coming, sometimes it's different color. So I'm not getting that consistent belt, I'll remove it. So this point, right, the 10th point, 3D props, I'll tell you about this. So you can use 3D props, for things like, let's just say that you have to use or you have to make a necklace, let's say, right? You have to make a pendant for a character, and that pendant requires. So now, okay, very first thing is always try to get things by prompt. Don't try to use additional 3D backgrounds or stuff, right? Because I'm telling this because it's easier to get something by prompts than getting things like this. But sometimes there is a significance of few things in the story. Like maybe assume that the character has a very, specific pendant which has a very precise role in the story, or like there's a very precise mention of that thing in the story, and that character always wears that pendant, or he or she is wearing that pendant in 3 4 episodes, and it has to be very consistent, or like the details cannot change even slightly because it has to look a specific way. Or maybe there are a lot of things like this. Maybe there is some specific book that has to look in a specific manner, and it cannot change even slightly because that book has a very significant role in the story, something like that, right? In those cases, definitely go ahead and use 3D props. Now, why exactly this is useful is because let's assume that I have to make a, not even getting a good pendant here. Yeah, so let's say that I have to make something like this. Now, maybe there's a, you know, uh, like I have to use this because it is specified in the story that the person has a green jade pendant or something, and it has to look in a specific manner because maybe let's say something like this. Now this pendant has to look exactly like this because it has a significant role in the story, right? So I can use this 3D prop that is called Sketchfab. People who don't know, now, the benefit of using this is you can move this in on the directions. So wherever you have to place it, you can just take a screenshot. Now, if I have to, make the person wear this pen, then I can take the screenshot of this, like whatever angle I have that character here, I can move that in that particular character and patch it on the character. Same thing goes with, let's say, a wall clock, table, chair, anything. I can use this and I can keep things consistent. But now there is a but in this. So because you're using a 3D, like the stuff here, you have to be first very sure about perspective and proportions. So if you are someone who has like, issues in creating or understanding perspective or proportions, or you feel like I do get a lot of regions on perspective and proportions, don't try this. Because if you don't understand perspective and proportions, you might not be able to get this on the character. So using this is like, you can use this definitely for background, for props, but only when you know perspective and proportions, like you're too pro in perspective and proportions. Second thing, now because we want to make things consistent, I will, if let's say if I have to use a wall clock, let's say, right, and I'm keeping this as my wall clock because the wall clock has a significant, part in the story. It has to look exactly like this or something. Right now, I'm using this particular wall clock whenever I'm making that room scene or something. Right now, because I have to keep this consistent and I have to also get that details in the wall clock. Right, I cannot do image to image or in painting on this at a higher intensity. Because if I do an in painting on this at 50% or 60% or 40%, it will lose the details. Every time I'll in paint this, I might get a different wall clock. I might lose the details in this. So if I am using the 3D backgrounds, I never paint things above than 20%. So if I have to like definitely I have to paint it because I have to get the style correct. And also there will be few, rough edges here and there. To fix all those things, we need one in painting, but it cannot go beyond 20%. Because if I go beyond 20%, I lose the details. Plus, it might start becoming inconsistent. So in that case, lot of times we have seen that if your background sometimes have a different tone and lighting, and the lighting and the tone of these 3D backgrounds or props are very different from your image. So maybe your room is very, like, how do I say, in a very light tone, or but the prop that you have here, the tone and the lighting is not matching your background. So even though I have a wall watch here or a wall clock here, I cannot directly put it on the background. Now, all these lightings and tones and shadows, all these things are something that the AI can fix if I paint something at higher intensity. So even if my, like, let's say the tone and the lighting of the wall and the tone and the lighting of this wall clock is not matching, if I image to image it once at 50 or 60%, let's say, the AI will automatically fix the lighting, tone, shadows, everything for me. But the point is here I cannot do image to image at 50% because I need the watch to be looking in a specific manner. So in that case, I also have to understand how to get the tone, lighting, shadows in Photoshop or in any other tool. So I'll suggest not to use 3D props a lot. Do not try to, because also one point is you will need efforts and time to use like something like a 3D prop, because you always have to generate an image first, then with respect to the background or the character you have, you'll have to adjust this, take a screenshot, put it there, fix the lighting, tone, add shadows, do all those stuff, do indenting. It requires a lot of time to do this. So first of all, it requires efforts and time. Second thing, if you are someone who, has not too much experience in using Photoshop, or someone who don't know lighting and tools a lot, don't try to use it a lot. You can definitely use it, but it's always better to make workable images than to make bad images. So there are three categories of images. One is bad image, one is workable image, one is good image. Now, if you are trying to make, like, good images, and in the process of making an image as a good image, you think that maybe let me use a 3D prop, and if, like, let's say, you did not get the final output as you expected, then it might be counted as a bad image. So it's always better to make something workable. If you are not sure about using 3D, don't use it. Make workable images. We are fine with getting workable images. So again, it's always better to have workable images than to have bad images. You can always try to make good images, but in the process of making good images, don't make it as a bad image. This 11th point, very interesting point. Some of you might even know this, might be using this, but again, I'll just tell you about this. So sometimes few colors, specifically green or pink, are like few shades. There are other shades as well, but specifically green and sometimes pink as well are colors which affect the backgrounds and the colors of different characters as well. So what I mean by this is, now let's say I have to make a character wear a green dress. Right now, in my view, maybe there are three characters. So I have to make three characters in a room. The room is supposed to be white color, and three characters are supposed to wear three different colors of dresses. Now, one of them is supposed to wear a green dress, but because of that green colors, sometimes all the colors, like all the characters who are wearing different dresses, even their dresses might get affected or the backgrounds might get affected, right? So there are few colors which affect our background and dresses a lot. You might have noticed this as well. Right? I'm assuming that you guys have noticed this. Yeah. Okay. So now in those cases, again, we did look at ways to fix the color of the background, right? We had like six or seven points in understanding how to fix these colors. We had lot of ways to fix this color, and it's always easier to fix color if we have like gray or white as our color, because if even if I have like, let's say, imagine that here I wrote that the person is wearing a green t-shirt and the room is supposed to be white room, I still got the room as white, right? Even the bed came as white. And here there are characters at the back, everyone is wearing green. Right now, here she's wearing pink and everything is pink. Like even the bed is pink, the wall is pink, everything is pink. Right? So now in these kind of cases, now definitely if I have to make the background white or gray, I can select this part, play around with saturation and stuff, and I can change the color definitely. But sometimes it's easier to, like, because maybe I have to make 20-25 images with this character wearing green or pink, right? Now if I just leave the images like these, I have to fix all the 20-25 images background, because every time I'll make this character, I know this, like every time I'll write the character is wearing a green t-shirt, I know that this green color is gonna affect my background. This green color is also gonna affect the color of other people's dresses. So, like, if I have to think about it, changing backgrounds and dresses for all the characters and all the backgrounds for 20-25 images is a very like tedious task. So instead of doing that, sometimes what we do is we make, now because I know that the only thing that is affecting the background or the dresses here is the color, right? So I'll exclude that color from my image. So let's say that I have to make her wear green t-shirt, but I know that because of writing the word green in my prompt, that color green is affecting my backgrounds a lot. And it will take me a lot of time to fix these green in all the images, because maybe the entire episode she's wearing green. So what will I do is I'll make the entire episode with her wearing a white t-shirt. So in the prompt, I'll exclude the color green. I'll not mention that she's wearing green. I'll mention that she's wearing a white t-shirt. And now because she's wearing a white t-shirt, I'll also get the background is white. So there will be no effect in getting the backgrounds right. No matter what color of background I need there, I can get it. Well, now because I have white here, it's very easy for me to change this white into any color I want. So for example, now this thing that I'm showing right now, this can also be done in Photoshop or any other tool. I'm just showing this in Studio. So now let's assume that I have to make her wear a green t-shirt, but like because of writing that word green, it was affecting my backgrounds. So I wrote white t-shirt. Now I got two images here in which she is wearing white. I have to convert it into green. Now again, I have a lot of ways, but I'll show you one easiest way. So what we can do is we can segment the image out. So let's say that we segment the image out. Now I'll just select this cloth part, right? This part where I need to add the color, and I'll just add as color here. So now we have a color here. Now I have one color. I have already kept one color here. So now I can use this color every time I have to make that image. right? So all the images where I have white t-shirt, I can use this. I can pick this and I can go to this picker, pick this green shade. So every time I'll get this similar green here. Right? I can do this for all the images, like let's say here, and well, let's just use segment. Yeah, so let's say again we want this green. I'll add as a color. Now, whenever you add as a color, it will always show as black, but you can change it to that specific color, right? You can have that color kept with you. Now, whenever you add that color, it will always be same color. And then you can use blend modes to blend it, right? You can use multiply, let's say. So now it will also give you all that, creases and shades and stuff. And your color will always be similar. So now you also got white background without affecting, like, because of this green dress, your background did not get affected. You also get the green t-shirt, and it will always be same because you're always using white color dresses. So whenever you keep this green, and because we're using the same shade of green, it'll always be the same shade, exactly same shade. So your backgrounds are consistent. Your backgrounds are not getting affected because of the green color, and you're also getting the dresses consistent. Now all you have to do is you'll have to paint it once because it'll be very like you'll be able to see this rough edges here and there. So you definitely have to paint it, but because you have a reference image at the back, like because you have this green color and the shades and everything, if you just paint it at a very low intensity, that is like, let's say, even if you paint it at 30 or something, it will not affect the color and tone. It will just fix these edges for you. Now, there is one point left, that is match colors. So I'll explain that point in Photoshop. So we have one last point left here. Where is that list? So we have one last point, that is match colors, right? So now again, there can be lot of different things that you can use. All these things, like all these 12 points that I told you, uh, all these are the things that I generally use, or some, like, I might have used some in some or the other show, in some of the other images. Sometimes I have used one of the technique only once or twice in my life. Sometimes I use few techniques a lot. But I'm telling you all these techniques because maybe this might help you, this might not help you, right? So again, for doing the same thing, you can have lot of different ways, but this is the easiest way I feel. Right? You can have your own ways of doing stuff, but I'll just tell you because it might help you. Right? So sometimes what happens is we have different shades of color. Like let's say that I have to keep a pink room for some reason, right? I have to have a pink room. Now, even though I wrote a pink room, the shades of the pink are different. Like here, the pink room looks different, and here, the pink room looks different. Right. So now, definitely, I can select this pink and like using the saturation and color balance and brightness, all these things, I can fix this paint to look like this. Right. But there is an easier way to fix it. So let's assume that this is the shade of pink I want, and I'm not getting this exact shade. So I can use something called as match colors in Photoshop, and I can very easily fix those colors. So now assume that this is the pink I want. So I'll just select one portion of that pink, keep it in a different layer, and on the image where I have to, fix that, what I'll do is I'll just select the portion where I have to fix it. So I can select the entire background. I'm just showing you this part so that you understand the difference. Now I can just go to match colors, and I can very easily match the color. If you see, it will just pick the color from this image and it will put it here. So now if I would have selected the entire background, right, it will just fix that for me. And you can also adjust things like these to also make it look more, better in your images. something like this. Now it will automatically fix this color to look exactly like this. So sometimes when you have different shades, because keeping shades as like white or gray is still easier, but if you have to use different colors and you're getting the color but the shades are different, it's very easy to fix the shades like this. Same thing with the dresses. Now let's say that I need a blue dress, but for some reason I did not got the blue dress. I got like the pink dress. So what I can do is I can keep this blue dress with me on a different layer, let's say layer 2, and here I need this pink t-shirt to be like the blue t-shirt. So I can just, let's say, take this t-shirt. Like I can select the entire portion of the t-shirt. Now whatever portion I select, I can just go here and match the color with that image. So you can see this was our original color of the t-shirt, the pink one, but very easily it just made it blue. And this is the exact blue that we have here. Like it will just make it the same blue that we have here. So match colors is one of those features in Photoshop, which I feel like is very easy to use and it fixes color tones and shades very easily. So in case you're suffering you know, in images if you're suffering from getting different shades and it's hard for you to get the shades right, you can use this.